Hi everyone, my name is Biser Dimitrov. That's our NFT Rewards panel. I'm going to pass the mic to everybody to introduce themselves. So my name is Biser Dimitrov. I work for probably the largest system integrator in the States, Tata Consultancy Services. We work with the largest enterprises, financial services, banks, mutual funds, custodians, and we have two NFTs rewards implementations in two of them, which we're going to speak now, today.
Hey everyone, I'm Flynn. I work at Dapper Labs doing some product stuff, mainly working on Flow, but happy to chat about anything regarding reward tokens and rewarding people with NFTs for completing actions on chain. Happy to talk more about it after.
Hey everyone, I'm Kalla. I'm the co-founder of Roll. So at Roll, we build infrastructure for social money, which are, you can think of them as branded ERC20 tokens that you can then use for redeeming NFTs like crypto art, which is our largest category on Roll.
Hey everybody, my name is McGarry. I'm a co-founder of Grow Your Base. We're essentially the Coinbase Earn for NFTs and tokenized assets. And we partner directly with NFT developers and token issuers to get you guys your first 1,000 users. Users complete simple assignments and earn NFTs. We have about 30,000 users right now, growing by about 300 a day. And we're working with some of the top developers here. See a lot of people out there in the audience, but that is me.
Yeah. I hope you guys can hear as well. If not, we'll hold it closer. So let's start first from my experience. I want to talk about a little bit the best examples, what we've seen for rewards tokens. And coming from an enterprise space, we've seen two types of reward tokens. One is loyalty points for financial services, where we combined. Think about Amex cards, points, and within your wallet, within your digital wallet, you can convert between and spend them on airplane tickets, or you can spend them on Best Buy. And currently, there are several issues with those systems. We don't have transparency. You don't have real time. You don't have how much you own converted to the program you want to spend them to. So that's why we introduced blockchain. We tokenize those loyalty points and we use NFTs. This was done for a large investment bank that has also retail. The other use case I've worked on, and interesting to hear what the rest are working on, is for a large hospitality group where they have different hotel resorts in different continents, and currently they are not that digital. So they came to us and wanted to create this digital wallet where they'll have one place where their customers would be earning points and they'll be actually spending within their own properties. So it's all on blockchain again, all done, but it's on a very private infrastructure, so we're not touching the public. So interesting to hear what the rest, how you see, what is the best use cases for rewards tokens.
Yeah, so I think there are two types of reward tokens. There are NFT reward tokens, which we were talking about, and also like personal tokens, what Roll does. Some cases where you see NFT tokens is when you reward people for completing something that's valuable to the company. So like at Dapper Labs or CryptoKitties, we reward people with kitties for completing contests or doing something along those lines. But sometimes they have to have some intrinsic value to the user in order to be valuable, right? Because sometimes if you have like a hackathon, for example, and you're rewarding an NFT for completing something, they might just liquidate it right on the market and it becomes a financial incentive and not an intrinsic motivation. So we got to figure out the best ways to actually reward people for completing an action that actually has the user holding the NFT for longer periods of time. And that might be integrating with new applications that might be kind of promise them features in the future that make the NFT more valuable, but it can't just be some sort of financial incentive in the first place.
Yes, I mean, our thing at Roll is, our hypothesis is simply that just when it comes to the reward side, we want to give fans the flexibility to choose their own NFT. So kind of in the sense of like crypto art, for example, which is one of our largest categories on Roll, you have literally like tens of thousands of items you can buy on OpenSea, like using, let's say, Connie's Hue, who's in the audience here, and almost like 20 different artists also use Hue as a payment mechanism. And so all of a sudden, it's not just one art piece that you may or may not like. It's like you get to choose from a plethora of different options that are available to you. So we do find that valuable. And I think like Brian's point is really important, which is like, how do you prevent this fact that as soon as you get a reward token, whether it's NFT or even social money, you'll just sell it in the marketplace. And I think like one of the ways we have found to combat that is we really focus on the community aspect of social money. So you can almost think of, just given the economics of social money, it's almost, we see community itself as a digital asset that's represented through the ERC20 social money. So what then happens is the people who are closest to you are the ones who have the most incentive to hold on to your social money as well. So we have like really dropped the velocity for people trying to like sell that, and instead we see people literally buying these tokens on the marketplaces instead.
Yeah, so as a content creator myself, I've been making content for 4 or 5 years in the space. I reach about 1.2 million people a month on social media, and I learned before we started Grow Your Base that asking the community, building up a community, asking them what they wanted to see in terms of what made sense was really what we implemented at Grow Your Base. So, for example, last year we had 5,000 users. We sent polls every single week to ask them, all right, what's the best use case for you guys? Like, what are you interested in? And we narrowed it down from 10 categories to 3. And when we launched in Q4 of 2019, we went from 5,000 to 30,000 already. And that was because we were giving the community essentially the use case that they were most interested in. And half the traffic was referrals. So people were interested in what they were earning, so they were sharing with their friends because they were basically providing the use case to us. And I think that reaching out to the community, being transparent with what you guys are doing and letting everyone know up front, educating them on what you're making, what you're building, is a very underrepresented and very powerful aspect to growth in the space, especially a smaller space like this. And I think use case is really powerful with rewards because incentives drive the world, making sure that everybody's getting what they want or what they need in the future is such a good use case for something that they truly own an NFT, and going through some basic assignments and learning about these products, to me, is one of the best. I do really like what other projects are doing. Love what Roll's doing. I love what Bravo Coin is doing. There's a lot of really interesting incentives out there. But the step one for us was always reaching out to the community, asking them what they were interested in. And at this point, we're kind of seeing that explosive growth because of reaching out to them in the first place.
That's awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about technology and how important is the apps that we are working on, the applications. How important is do you support only one blockchain, or you try to be agnostic? And I want to ask you guys, how do you see the technology evolving? What else needs to be there? We already have Ethereum the way it is. We have other blockchains out there, EOS. How do you see that technology? What is missing now, and what do you need more?
Yeah, so I think what's really important here is that Ethereum has kind of this ecosystem built around it right now, but to a new user, it's still really hard to onboard new users onto Ethereum. And people have been creating a lot of good products around this, like smart contract wallets and meta transactions to kind of onboard users easier with reward tokens. But it's kind of still not enough because it takes a long time to confirm transactions, and it can really mess up a user's balance if they kind of revert the transaction on their end. So at Dapper Labs, we're building the Flow blockchain, which will kind of solve some of these problems. We're making onboarding easier with Dapper Wallet. So we're kind of building this full technology stack that makes it much easier to engage just more of a mass consumer audience onto the world of blockchain with the reward tokens. So I think at least from our perspective, that's kind of what we see as kind of what's needed to get kind of the more and more momentum rolling around this.
Yeah, so for us, the most important thing is interoperability, because we don't believe that us, like even as Roll, can build a full stack for what gives social money value. So like the simplest example for us is like a lot of our transactions happen on OpenSea and Uniswap. And we don't want to be in the business of building an NFT marketplace and like an automated market maker and things of that nature. So when we decided to build on Ethereum, for us, all of those pieces come out of the box for us. We're exploring several other DeFi primitives like lending, derivatives, and all that can be built on top of social money. So we don't want to be rebuilding that stack. So for us, that's the most important thing when we think about which blockchain to build on. Obviously, super interested in some of the newer blockchains like Flow, which come with some more advantages of Ethereum. But this kind of being the most important thing, so we watch that very closely.
Yeah, so we're definitely blockchain agnostic. We work with every network out there that's on DApp Radar, DApp Review, and one of our partners, Splinterland, said it really well, where he said everything starts in silos and then people build bridges. And I think that really explains a lot of the tribalism and things like that behind some of these different networks. So we really wanted to start with just opening the doors to all users, no matter where they were coming from. Half of our user base is just learning what Ethereum is, what an NFT is, and a lot of them are coming from Steam. Some of them are coming from EOS. Some of them are coming from Tron now. I think that there's a lot of open air and a lot of blue ocean, maybe you could say open sea, out there that allows people to really come together on a platform. And it doesn't need to be powered by one blockchain like our platform, because I think that there is a need for these bridges that I was just mentioning, because everybody's kind of working together to create like a little bit of a Frankenstein community to come together to all work towards this adoption. And I think in terms of where we've seen the most traction out of the communities, I think Steam, we've done about 500,000 transactions on the platform, and the Steam community definitely delivered in a big way, a multiple of what the Ethereum ERC 721s that have listed on the site. So shout out to Steam and the people building on the network there.
So I got a question from the audience here. It says, what type of intrinsic rewards are you experimenting with to partner with intrinsic value of the token? It's kind of a loaded question, but so I think at Dapper Labs, the way we're thinking about intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation is that for some NFT rewards, there's a high personal value to achieving that NFT in the first place. So attending like a sports game, or winning a hackathon, or actually having any sentimental value to that actual moment in time that you're receiving the NFT might make that NFT more valuable to you, which actually decentivizes you to liquidate the token in the first place. So how do we create more personal motivation to that specific token, and how do we grow that connection to that token in the first place that makes them kind of hold on to that token forever? I think that's kind of the best way to kind of approach that scenario.
I think for us, like we face a similar thing, and we kind of don't want to have a strong opinion on what people can do with social money. We do have strong opinion about other things like the economic parameters, investing, and things like that. But we think that it's really important for communities to decide what's important to them instead of us as a product trying to make that decision for them. And I think to Brian's point, where like how do you incentivize people to hold on to something? I think the idea of personal value is really important, and which is why we strongly emphasize the initial distribution of social money to your biggest fans and to the biggest members of that community, so that they're not looking to liquidate that immediately for a few cents or some financial gain. They're holding on to that for the very long term.
And to add on to that, in terms of like the community and reaching out to the community, asking your user base what they're interested in, asking them what's personally valuable to them. For example, today we've announced the partnership with Rocket NFT, so we're working with Alex and his team on allowing people to get loans because that's what the community asked for. They're going through earning these assets and trying to take out loans against them because they are interested in that. And we wouldn't have learned that unless we were reaching out to the community, the user base, learning things that they were interested in and that was valuable to them. And I think a really valuable thing that we were talking about actually right before we got on stage was that CryptoKitties was very much like a tipping point in the space, I think. And we see a lot of kitty fanatics, we call them on our platform, and they are holding some of the original kitties, and they're very interested in the equity that's locked in those kitties, and they don't necessarily breed them or anything on their own. They're just kind of hodling, and I think that allowing something like borrowing against that is such a powerful thing that we didn't even really see coming. That was just presented by the community as something they were very interested in. And just like, asking the community, making sure that you're giving them what they want within reason, and scaling from there is our top priority, and determining what's personally valuable to them is going to come from that as well.
Awesome, thank you. So I think we have time for one more question. So I want to talk a little bit how you guys see rewards token more on the financial side or more on the holding users within one community. I know you guys already mentioned parts of this, but how do you see it in the next 1 year? You see NFTs more on the getting a stronger value outside on secondary markets, or as a goal to hold users within one community?
Yeah, I think mostly every company wants the actual user to hold the NFT for a long period of time, or hold social money for a long period of time. I don't think in any scenario they want them to liquidate for a financial incentive. I think the way the space will kind of evolve is that we'll probably see a lot more interoperability between different platforms, so people will actually see what achievements or what on-chain things that people have done in other dApps, and then reward people for completing those actions. So those users become more valuable because they've actually interacted with much more applications. It makes that user more valuable to their own platform in the first place.
Yeah, so I think the NFT market in general is very broad. So I can talk about the crypto art market, which is a sub-niche but a very fast-growing one. Having a secondary market that's robust is really good and important from an artist perspective because it generally makes their art more valuable to both themselves and their holders. But to Brian's point, you need to be very careful about people trying to dump some tokens that you've gotten as a reward, immediately as soon as you've gotten that, because that really devalues your work. So which is why, so some of the things we do with social money is because the biggest fans of your work are the ones who hold social money. They're the ones who also get your art that's redeemed through that social money. So we actually see very few people kind of quote unquote trying to dump their assets on the secondary marketplace, which is a good place to be.
And in terms of the financial aspect, I think a great example, I was talking to Ryan from our partners at Crypto Space Commanders, and what they're experiencing is a lot of users that, let's say, haven't played the game in quite some time. They hold some of these ships that are worth 6 figures. I think that in the gaming scenario, there is a potential where those people that aren't playing and they're just kind of sitting around, not collecting, not liquidating, not doing anything within the game, whereas there's other people that would look at that asset and say, I could use that for something incredible, and freeing up that liquidity for the person that holds it, giving them an incentive that really likes what they're interested in, giving them the incentive to potentially lend that to someone else, I think is a huge, huge financial instrument and opportunity. I think that the financial aspect of holding, some of these Gen 1 kitties, I think that is something where people also would be interested in breeding out their kitties and things like that. But in terms of our community where we're at right now, it is very much so asking them what they're interested in, polling them on a regular basis, and with 300 new people a day, it gets kind of inundating by the amount of requests and questions, especially financially, and we're trying to educate people so that they're not just getting an asset, liquidating it. We're trying to educate them on what they can do with that asset after they get it, whether it's in-game or trading with their friends or whatnot. So I think that it's important to really make sure that education happens after they've signed up or post-sign up.
So we get a question from the audience. I just want to ask it. And we already touched it a little bit, but how do you price a reward token? How do you get how do you accurately price it? Yeah.
I think it just depends on how valuable that action is to the company. So it's kind of like an acquisition cost to the company, essentially.
I think you want to be careful with what you're incentivizing with, because what you don't want to end up in is a situation where the first 5 people or like the first 100 people who have done something kind of get almost all of your pool, and then the rest of the 1,000 people who could be onboarded are kind of left with nothing. So you want to be careful with that.
Yeah, and for us, I think in terms of it's up to the developer and the token issuer what they see as valuable. We thought that it was going to be traffic to websites. We thought it was going to be conversions and signups, but it turns out emails was the biggest. With Crypto Motors, we just launched our campaign and did over 4,000 emails just for their campaign because they were interested in learning more. So I think that it is up to the developer very much.
Thank you, guys.